Hi everyone and welcome to my channel, Coloring and Comments, a channel where I color in mandalas and talk to you about issues that are on my mind. And this week I want us to discuss the inner child. Have you ever had those moments where you feel angry and agitated and pissed off for almost no reason? That was me this weekend. I was so upset, and in all honesty, I almost threw a tantrum because I didn't get what I wanted, and I had to step back and ask myself, why am I being so immature in my response to being rejected? And then I realized, well, actually, it's my inner child that feels rejected, that feels unwanted. And the only way she can tell me that is by throwing a tantrum, right? But before I delve deeper into that, let's first go and look at what exactly is the inner child. And people define it differently depending on what you're reading and where you're reading it. But how I understand it is that the inner child is that part of us that's innocent, the part of us that's love, the part of us that's creative and curious and happy. But also the inner child is that part of us that carries our childhood trauma. Unfortunately, life isn't perfect. And a lot of us didn't have the perfect childhoods and therefore endured a lot of traumatic events, whether that is physical, emotional, or even spiritual. And because we were kids, we did not have the tools to fully process and understand the trauma and work through that trauma. So then what happens is that a part of you remains stuck with this trauma even as you age. So you can see it as a part of your psyche. For example, if a traumatic event happened when you were 9, a part of your psyche remains 9 years old, carrying this trauma even as you grow older. And so whenever there's an instance that is triggering events or triggering you to remember this trauma, that 9-year-old is the one that will respond and say, I am unhappy, I feel unwanted. And they can only do that through childlike ways, which is, for example, throwing a tantrum. And that's why you see sometimes we look at adults and say, why are they acting like a child? And that's because in that moment, they are a child. I'll give you an example. So this past weekend, like I said, I didn't get what I wanted and it made me very upset and I almost threw a tantrum. I linked the outcome of what I really wanted with my self-worth. And I say that because I didn't grow up with a dad. Like, I was raised by a single mom. My mom did an amazing job, even I have to say so myself. But my dad wasn't a part of my life before I was even born, if that makes sense. And for the longest time, I didn't see this as trauma. I just saw it as, okay, this is my reality. But then someone pointed it out to me and said, look, when one of your parents chooses to not be in your life, you automatically think that there's something wrong with you. Because you ask yourself, why can't my parent love me the way I should be loved, or the way parents should love children? And I then realized that me not having a father manifested in me always feeling unwanted and unloved and unworthy. And this in turn manifested in me always trying to be an overachiever, always trying to be the best at whatever I'm doing, even though I don't enjoy it, just because I want some form of validation. I want someone to say, I see you and you are worthy. And unfortunately, it's traumas that like this that leave us in toxic situations, because it's so funny. We stay in these toxic situations because the situations reaffirm what we think of ourselves. So the toxic environment reaffirms that, oh, I'm not worthy, or oh, I'm not wanted, and therefore it is true, and I stay with this trauma. And before you go on and say, okay, look, I'm old, I'm matured, I've dealt with my trauma, I'm good. Well, I read this article by Alethea Luna, and it's a brilliant article. I will link it down in the description box. And in this article, she writes out 25 statements. And the gist is that the more statements you say yes to, the more likely you probably need to start doing some inner child work. And I highlighted 7 of these statements that I felt really resonated with me, and perhaps they'll resonate with you as well. So as I work through the statements, just go down to the comments and say whether yes, it resonates, or okay, no, it doesn't really apply to me. Okay. The first statement is, in the deepest part of me, I feel that there's something terribly wrong with me. Number 2, I'm a people pleaser and tend to lack a strong identity. 3, I feel guilty standing up for myself. 4, I feel inadequate and not good enough as a woman. 5, I'm driven to always being an A+ super achiever, like I already mentioned. 6, I constantly criticize myself for being inadequate or unworthy. 7, I have trouble starting and finishing things, which I really, really struggle with. But I understand, like, doing inner child work is not easy, because it forces us to go to a space where we thought we had healed. So it forces us to face that trauma and say we actually have to unpack this and really process it in order for us to truly heal. But if you feel like you're not ready to do a deep dive into inner child work, there are 7 things that I picked up that you can say to yourself to just start the healing journey, or you can say to your inner child to start the healing journey. The first thing is, I love you. There is nothing that you need to do in order for me to love you. You are lovable just the way you are. 2, I hear you. I hear you when you speak, and I know that your voice is valid. 3, you don't deserve this. You are innocent, and it's not your fault. You did nothing to deserve the pain and the trauma that you had to endure. 4, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for pushing you too hard and making you believe that you were not good enough. 5, I forgive you. I forgive you for all the things that you thought you have done wrong. You have to realize that these were situations that were outside of your control. Number 6, thank you. Thank you for enduring those difficult times, and thank you for protecting me from my past pain. The last one is, you did your best. You did the best that you could, and your best is good enough. So I encourage you to say those 7 things to yourself on a daily basis and just see how you start to feel and see how your inner child starts to respond to these words and to these statements. And if you have anything else that you would like to add, I'd love to hear your perspective down in the comment section below. So thank you for coming today. May your day be colorful and wonderful, and I'll see you in the next video.